So if you want to define your own server, if you want to give a server functionality into a JavaScript application, then you are not required to deal with the networking concepts at the low level. Okay, you are not supposed to write those socket uh, concept by your own in order to define a server. Okay, so instead of that we are going to use certain module. Okay, so in JavaScript here comes a new concept, that is the module. So basically what exactly is a module? So module is simply like a library. So first of all, module is like a library. Okay, it is like a library in which you will get some predefined functions. Okay, using them you can have your own program simplified a little bit. Okay, so this means module is just like a library which provides predefined JavaScript functions. So this is the role of module in JavaScript. If you want to, let's say, perform anything, instead of writing your own code, just go with any module. For example, in Java also, have you seen the math library or math class?
Sir.
Okay.
Yes.
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 So in the same way, this module will contains some predefined functions using which you can simplify your application development. So module is just a collection of, so module is a collection of functions which you can reuse. Okay, so module concept is very simple. Okay, so in JavaScript, we can have our own modules also, and we can download and install some external modules also. So this means in JavaScript, we can uh, we can create our own modules. This is the first point about the modules, which in which we can have our own modules also. Okay, we will see later on that how we are going to define our own modules. Okay, and one more thing is there in JavaScript. While installing the Node.js, some already defined modules are being installed into your system. Okay, so while installing Node.js, some official Node.js modules are installed into our systems. Okay, so this is the second point. So while you are installing Node.js, there are some modules which are being officially defined by the Node.js, and these modules are being installed into our system at the time of Node.js installation. Okay, so you don't need to download and install them externally. Okay, these modules will be downloaded and installed at the time of Node.js installation. Okay, and there are some modules which are not the part of official Node.js modules. There are some third-party modules also which you can download and install into your system. Okay, so let me write that point. There are some modules which we can download and install them manually. Okay, install them manually according to our use. Okay, so we can have these kind of modules. So we can have our own modules, and we are having some modules which are being officially defined by Node.js. And when we are installing Node.js, these modules are automatically installed into the systems. And yes, there are going to be some modules which are being defined by some third party organizations. Like these modules are being not officially defined by Node.js, and neither Node.js defined them, nor we have created them. Okay, these modules were defined by a third party organization, any other organization. Okay, so we can download and install them manually according to our use. Right. So as of now, we have to explore the second type of modules, okay, which are being defined officially by Node.js. Okay, and when you have installed Node.js, at the same time, these modules are installed into your systems. So, what are the few examples of these modules are? Let me write one point.
Sir, can you just scroll down 1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. So Node.js predefined modules. So I'm going to name a few of the modules, but these are not the limited one. Okay. So one modules which we are going to use. Someone has mic on. Okay. So we are having one module whose name is HTTP. So by reading the module name as HTTP, what you are thinking about this module? What kind of functions we will get inside the HTTP module?
Client side function to the server, like sending requests from clients.
Transfer function.
Exactly.
Protocol.
This means all the functions related to HTTP protocol. This means if you are searching for a function which will take request from the client on the server and generate a response from the server, so this module is going to help you. Okay, so this HTTP module provides functions related to create a server. Okay, so this is the use of HTTP module. So if you want to read a request on a server, if you want to process a request on a server, and if you want to generate a response from server and send it on the client, then this HTTP module will be the cup of tea. So we are having one more module whose name is FS. So by reading FS, so FS simply means file system. Okay, so if you want to handle the files on the server side, like if you want to read a file, if you want to write some data into a file, then in that case, we are going to use FS module. Okay, so this file system provides some functions related to file handling. So on the server side, if you are willing to handle any file, then we have to go with this FS module. And there are lots of modules using which you can perform any kind of functionality. Okay. So initially we are going to use these kind of modules. One is HTTP module and one is FS module. So our main functionality is what? What we are trying to achieve is we have to define a JavaScript program that will take a request from client and generate HTTP response. This means we are generating our own server. So which module we are going to use, HTTP or FS?
HTTP.
Yes, we are going to use
HTTP.
this HTTP module. So now, if we want to use any module into your JavaScript application, then you have to attach that module. Okay, like in Java, if you want to use any package, what we are doing?
Import.
Yes,
Importing that.
Import that package.
exactly. So in JavaScript also, you can import any module. Okay, if you want to use that module, you have to import that module. Okay, right? But instead of import, this import is a new standard of JavaScript. But when import has not been introduced in JavaScript, so every JavaScript developer use a function whose name is require. So instead of as of now, instead of writing import statement, we are going to use this require function. Okay, but JavaScript people has introduced a new concept of attaching any module in order to use it, that is import. Okay, we are also going to look at that, but initially we have to understand the working of this require thing. So if you want to use any module into your JS program, so you have to require it. So let me write one point. If we want to use any JS module, then we have to require it. So this is the point which we have to remember. If we want to use any JS module, then we have to require it. So how we are going to require any module? Using require function. Using require function. So basically, require is not just a statement, it is a function in which you have to pass the name of module. So let me open that file. Uh, Not only that file, I will open this whole folder, 26 October folder, into VS Code. Yeah. Okay, so in VS Code, you are able to see on left side the project structure. So you can see 26 October is our main folder, and this is having two files. One is server.js and one is node.txt. And inside this server.js, I would like to require a module. So I would like to use a module that is HTTP. So I need to write a function whose name is require, and inside the require, we have to pass the name of that module. So the name of that module is HTTP. So we have not defined this module. Okay, this module is being already installed when we have installed the Node.js. So after requiring any module, you need to assign this require into a variable. Okay, why we have to do so? In order to call its functions. Okay, if we want to call any function which is there inside the module, so first of all, you have to assign this require function into a variable. Let me show you how. For example, there is one module. Let's say you are having one module whose name is let's say demo module. Okay, we are having one module whose name is demo module, is the module name, just for an example. And in this demo module, we are having few functions, like one is sum, one is factorial. These are the two functions which are present inside this demo module. So first of all, in order to use the demo module, we have to require it. Now require, and inside require, just pass the name of that module, like demo module. And we are supposed to assign this require function into a variable. For example, where mod equal to this. Okay, this is the syntax you have to follow. You have to call this require function, and you have to assign the return value in a variable. Okay, so why we have assigned? Because we want to call the sum function and the factorial function. And if we want to call these functions which are inside any module, so what will be the way? You have to require that module, assign that into a variable, and you have to follow one syntax like variable name dot function name. Okay, so you have to follow this syntax, variable name dot function name. So what is the variable name which I have given to this module, which is mod? So I have to write such kind of thing like mod dot and function name will be sum. And if there are some arguments, you can pass. Like in the same way, if you want to find out the factorial, if you want to call the factorial function, then just write mod name to this variable. Okay, it's your choice. If you want to give any name to this variable, you can give. Like I'm giving a variable name like my mod. So this time, instead of writing only the my mode, uh, only writing mode, I would like to write my mod. Then in that same way, my mod dot factorial. So this is the way in which we are going to use any module. First of all, require that module, assign the reference into a variable, and if you want to call any function, just use such kind of syntax. This means reference name dot function name. So all of you understood this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the same way, we have required, we have to assign the reference into a variable. Let's say where, and you can give any name. You can give any name to the reference, but for the sake of code readability, I'm giving a name like HTTP. So where HTTP is equal to require, or instead of where, you can also write one keyword like const. Okay, so that it will become a constant, and no value other than this module can be assigned into the HTTP. Okay, so we can't change the value of HTTP. That's why I have written this const keyword. And now if we want to call the function, now how we are going to call the function? Just write HTTP, the variable name, the reference name, and dot name of the function. So we have to call a function whose name is this, whose name is what? Create server. Okay, so this is the function which is going to define a new server for you. Okay, now this function will accept a callback function. Okay, let me write one point here. So HTTP module has a function whose name is whose name is this. Now this create server function will take a callback function. If I'm saying that this function is taking a callback function, this means we have to define that callback into the argument. So this function will take a callback function in argument, and that function will be executed whenever there is a request on a server. Okay, so let me show you how we are going to define that callback. So inside the argument, you have to pass one callback function. Okay, and that callback function will be known as what? Request listener. So request listener means what? A function that is going to continuously listen to the request. If there is a request, then that function will be executed. So now inside this function, I'm just passing one callback function. Okay, so this is how your Node.js server code looks like. So HTTP dot create server, and inside this function we have to pass one callback, and again this callback will have two arguments. So first argument will represent your incoming request, and the second argument will represent your outgoing response, right? So this is your server code, and only this function is responsible to handle the request of the client. Okay, if there is any request on this server, then this callback function will be executed, and when this callback function is executing, this request object is representing the incoming request, and this RESP will represent the response object. And you can give any name, like I'm giving name like request, or you can write complete name like a response, or you can give any name like X and Y. Okay, but always give variable names such that uh, it can be more readable to any developer. So X and Y also work fine. Why? Because X will be working as incoming request and Y is representing the response. Okay, the first argument will always be for request, and the second argument will always be for response. Okay, so this is your server code on the Node.js. So let me write one point that this function will take a callback function in argument, and that callback function will take two arguments. So how those two arguments are going to work? So first will be the request object, and second will be the response object. So this is how your callback function looks like. Okay, so any request whenever any request arrives on the server, that callback function will be executed. Okay, so this is the importance of that callback function. Okay, so whenever any request arrives on the server, that callback function will be executed. So when any client will send a request onto this our own defined server, so this callback will start its execution. Okay, so only in that case. Okay, so if you are running this application, then don't think that this function will be automatically called. Okay, so this function will be called only on one event, when a client is sending a request, then only this highlighted function will be executed. Now inside this, I'm logging a value on the console. So now whose console will be logged, servers or clients?
Server.
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 Exactly,
Server.
log will be for the server. Exactly. So I'm writing I'm writing one message like hello world. So this hello world will be displayed on the server's console. Now, what if we want to send a response on the client? So which object we are going to use? The first or second?
Second.
Second, yes. We have to use this response object. So response dot, you have to call a function whose name is write. Okay, so you have to call this function response dot write, and inside the write function I am passing one message, that is hello client. So who is going to receive this message? Hello client.
Client.
Exactly,
Client.
the client who will send a request. Now you have to end the response cycle. What I'm actually trying to say is, whenever client send a request on a server, the client will take a reload, and we have to send the confirmation from the server that yes, our process has been finished, so that the loading indicator will stop and it will display the response. So in order to do that, we have to call response dot end function. Okay, if you are not accessing this function, if you're not calling this end function, then this means what? Your client or your browser will goes in infinite loading state. It will take a reload for infinite time until unless your server has responded. Okay, so in order to send a confirmation on the client that yes, server has finished with processing the request and you can get the response. So in order to do that, we have to call this end function. Okay, so if you are not calling this AND function, then your client will infinitely show that reloading indicator. Okay, it will take a longer time to display your result. Okay, and at last, your browser may show an output like response server timeout or any kind of error. Okay, so in order to prevent that functionality, we are not required to wait. Okay, we are not required to wait on the client side. So in order to avoid that thing, we have to call this response.end. So I'm writing one point to send a confirmation on the client side that response, or I should say that processing on the server side
Can you
has
take
been
this
completed.
up downside
Yes. What?
and this comment downside and yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So when we will run this application, I will show you that what will be the result if we are not calling this end function. Okay, but only this thing is not enough. Okay, we also need to define a port number on which we have to run our server. Now here comes one important point, that what exactly is a port number. So in order to understand the port number, first of all, we have to be familiar with this term IP address. So you all know about IP address. So IP address is a unique address of a system, but on a network. Okay. So this is the important point. So on any network, if you want to identify a client, or if you want to identify a system uniquely, then an IP address will be given. So IP address will be given by whom? The network service provider, or the device manufacturer.
Yes,
Who will
manufacturer.
give IP address?
Device manufacturer.
Service provider.
Device
Service
manufacturer.
provider.
Service
Manufacturer is
provider.
MAC address. Manufacturer is MAC address.
Yes, manufacturer's address is MAC address. So this IP address will be given by your internet service provider. If you are using internet of Geo fiber, then Geo will give you an IP address. If you are using Airtel's network, then Airtel is going to give you an IP address. So that IP address is the unique address of that system specific to a network. If the network going to change, let's say if you are using Airtel internet, and at some later point of time you are using a Geo internet onto that same system, so is it likely to get a new IP address? If you are changing your network, then IP address will change or not?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, IP address will change. Right. If you are changing any network, is it possible that your MAC address also going to change?
No, sir.
No,
No, sir.
MAC address will not be changed.
inbuilt
No.
address.
Right. So in this same way, our server is also running on a network. So this means our server will also have an IP address. So our own server will also have a, an IP address. Okay, our server will also have an IP address. But as of now, we are not having any live server. So I'm not going to deploy my own server onto a live server, okay, onto a real-time server. I'm not going to deploy my code. So on which server are this server.js will be running? On the local server. Okay, so this means at the time of development, at the time of development, we will run our server program onto our own systems. Okay, so our system will be considered as a local server. So our systems will be considered as the local server. So in technical domain, we will not refer it to as local server. We will refer it to as local host. Okay. On our system will be considered as a local server, or we can say the local host. So this is the term which will be mostly used by any IT guy, that is local host. So local host means what? Our local system acting as a server. So our local
Means, sir,
yes.
when we create a website for any shop, then it will be a local host. That is only for the shop.
If you are running that website on the development system only, that is localhost.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you are deploying or hosting that website onto a real-time server, then that real-time server is localhost for that website. But for the entire world, it is a real-time server. Are you getting my point?
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
in both the server,
Can
the
you
IP
repeat?
address remain the same.
No. Your localhost IP address is going to be different, and the IP address for any real-time server is going to be different.
How, sir? Because both are on same the system and same network.
How you can say that your system is suppose using Airtel internet, and let's say any real-time server, for example, like GoDaddy or Big Rock. How can you say that GoDaddy and Big Rock are going to have the same IP address? Is it so?
No, sir. Okay.
Yes.
I will be creating that simulation of IP address for our local host also, right?
Yes. And we are not supposed to write that our own logic. Okay. So
Okay.
this HTTP module will do this job for you.
Okay, some inbuilt IP addresses are there, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But yes, if you are dealing with local host, then every local host will have same IP address. Every local host. I'm just saying for this only for local host. Okay, so every local host is going to have the same IP address, because that local host is running on local system. It has nothing to interfere with some any live running a real-time server. Okay, so this means every local host is going to have same IP address, and I hope you might have seen this kind of IP 127.0.1. Have you seen this?
Yes.
Okay, so this
Yes,
is
sir.
an IP address of
version
your local
04.
system only.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so just don't think that this IP address has been given by your internet service uh, provider. Either Geo has given it or BSNL has given it. No, this IP address belong to your local system only. And any local host in this entire world is going to have the same IP address 127.0.0.1. Okay, so this is the IP address on which our local server will be running. Okay, if you are running your own server, then this will be your port number onto your own local laptop or local PC. Okay, but
Means, sir,
yes,
means by seeing the IP address, we can conclude that this server is a local or a global server.
exactly. Exactly. If you are seeing such kind of IP address, this means it is guaranteed that this is a local server, local host.
Who can send data on local server?
But
Is
it will
what?
not be visible. See, it will not be visible to others. The
Huh,
scope of it
exactly.
is
It will not be
in
visible
just our
to
system.
other system. Yes. It, that's why I'm saying a local server, local host
Only we
will
can
be
use.
only available for this local system only. This
If we
means
can have, if we can have multiple processes running our system, like multiple servers, then we can, then we'll be having like multiple IP addresses. But that is not case in real time. We'll
yes,
be running a
exactly.
process, single process. So
Yes.
that's why HTTP provided us a single host,
If
local
if
host.
if you are having a multiple process onto the same system, So that's why a term port number has been introduced.
Hmm.
There may be a case where at the
Yes,
same
yes.
time multiple processes are being running onto a server. That may be a case because your server is responsible for executing your application, and at the same time your database will also running onto the same server. Okay, so in order to maintain these two processes and to differentiate them, the port number has been introduced. Okay, so this port number will be a logical address given to any process that is running on a server. Let me write a point. What is the port number? So port number is a logical address given to a process running on a server. For example, we are having our server, and that server is executing one application. This means application server will be responsible to accept the request and processing the request and generate the response. That is the application server, and one will be our database. Okay, so I hope you have heard about MySQL or MongoDB, such kind of things. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so these are just your databases in which you have to store and collect the data. See, this public IP address means that whole world can send a request, and that server is going to take request from any client. But what about private IP address? So this private IP address means what? Only the decided clients can send a request. So your server is going to accept a request from those clients who are being authorized. Not all the client are able to send the request onto the private IP.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So this application and database are the two processes which are running on the server. So how we can differentiate between them using the port number. Okay, so this port number, so how we are going to identify that on which thing we need to send a request? Do we need to send request on the application or onto a database? How we are going to recognize it? Because as of now we are only having this IP address like 127.0.0.1. We are having such kind of IP address. Then by looking at just at this IP address, can you say that request will be sent onto the application or to the database by just looking at this IP address?
No, sir.
No, by
No,
just
sir,
looking
no.
at this IP address, we can't say that request is being submitted onto the application or onto the database. So that's why this port number has been introduced. So every task or every process on the server will be given a port number. Let's say for this application, I'm giving a port number 7000. And let's say for the database, I'm giving a port number 3306. So now this means what? Whenever we have to send a request onto our server, we have to mention the port number so that our server can decide that on which process we have to take the request. Okay, we have to send a request to application or to a database. So in order to send a request onto this application, we need to write its port number. This means after the this symbol, which is known as what? This symbol, what is the name given to the symbol?
Colon.
Colon.
Exact, colon. And after that symbol, we have to write the port number. Okay, so this is the syntax. So first of all, just write IP address, and after IP address, just put one colon symbol, and after that, just write port number. Okay, so this will be your entire address on which you have to send a request. Okay, now if you want to send a request onto the database, so you have to write such kind of thing like 127.0.0.1, then colon 3306. Okay, so this means when you hit this URL onto your browser, it will be submitted onto your database, And if you hit this kind of URL, then request will be submitted to your application, which is running on your server. Okay. And both the things are
So
both the,
data,
yes,
hello, sorry to interrupt. Sir, your database is also on server.
yes, database will also run on server.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so these are the two different processes which are running onto a same server, and they may execute simultaneously. Okay, so just to differentiate in between them, we have this concept of port number. So since we have defined our own server, you can see we are having our own server, but we are having a very much clear idea that this server will be running on a port number, sorry, on a IP address, which is 127.0.0.1. But as a server developer, we have to define that on which port number we have to run this process. Because on Node.js or on any server, there can be lots of applications that needs to be executed. Okay, so for your own process, you have to define the port number. So how we can define the port number? So first of all, when we have called this function whose name is create server, is going to define a server for you, and it will return a server instance. Let me assign that into a variable like where server is equal to this. So when your server has been successfully created, it will return a server instance. And onto this server instance, we have to mention the port number on which we have to run this server. So this means the IP address is being already decided, which is fixed. We can't change it because this is a local server and it will be running on port number 127.0.0.1. Okay, it will be running on that, but port number may change time to time. Okay, so so as a developer, it's your responsibility just to give a port number to this process. Okay, so how we are supposed to give a port number? So onto this server reference, you have to call one function whose name is listen. So you can see what is the description of this listen function. Start a server listening for connections. So using this listen function, you are basically starting your server. Okay, if you are not calling this listen function, then your server will not be started. Okay, if you want to start any server in order to listen to any request, so you have to call this listen function. And inside this listen, you have to pass the port number on which you have to listen the request. Okay, so let's say I'm passing one port number of my choice, which is 7000. So this means when listen function will be called, our server will start and start listening to the given port number. Okay, so when this listen function will be called, our server will be started and the mentioned port number will be listened. So this means our server will be active for infinite time period. Okay, when you run this program, your server will be active for the infinite time period, and during that complete life cycle, during that time, your server is going to listen to this port number. Okay, so whenever a client is going to send a request onto this port number, then this mentioned callback function will be executed. Okay, so let me write one point. When a client is going to send a request on the mentioned port number, okay, when a client is going to send a request on the mentioned port number, then the callback of create server will be executed, because we have seen that this function will be executed whenever a client is going to send a request, and we know that a client is going to send a request on 127.0.0.1, but we also need to define a port number. So I have defined the port number as 7000, or you can give any value, okay, but try to avoid some already defined port number like 8080. It will be taken by Java Apache server. Okay, when you see that kind of concept in Java like JSP and servlet, using Java, you can also define your own server. So for that purpose, you have to go with servlet and JSP concepts. Okay, so for those server, you need to install Apache server separately. Okay, so those server are running on this port number like 8080, or let's say port number 8000. Just try to avoid these port numbers. And one is 3306, which is for which is being already taken by your MySQL database if you are having that kind of thing, or like 27017, which is being already taken by your MongoDB database. Just try to avoid these kind of this kind of port numbers. Okay, so with experience you will get to know that what may be the possible port number which is being already taken. Okay, but as of now, these are the few port numbers you have to avoid for your own application. One is port number 8080, 3306, and 2. This is 27017. Just try to avoid these port numbers, or otherwise you will end up getting an error message like this address is already in use. Okay, if you not want to get such kind of error, then please avoid these port numbers. So let's say I'm giving one port number which is 7000. Okay, so now we are done with defining our own server. Now let's run this server.js. So I'm just opening the terminal and just write node and server.js. Just hit enter, and you can see the server is being running. Okay, if the server has stopped working, then you can see that let's say let's do one thing. I'm not calling this listen function now. Okay, I'm just breaking its execution, and just try to look at the output. Okay, so you are having this node server.js. Okay, let me save it. Yeah, so you can see this time when I have commented this server.listen, what change have you noticed there? What
Node
change?
server.js not display.
Back to the back to listen next request.
Exactly. Your when this time we are running node server.js, this means what? It has stopped its execution by just starting server, and then it has ended the execution. But when I'm not commenting this, I'm writing this server.listen 7000. Now just notice the behavior. What is happening? Your application has not stopped. If the
Processing.
application has stopped, then you will be able to see such kind of again the new terminal. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now this time I'm running this. Now you can see this listen function has started your server, and your server is continuously listening onto this 7000. Okay, and whenever a client is going to send a request onto the 7000, this callback function will be executed, and it will log hello world on the console, and it will send hello client on the client machine. So now let's open the browser. Okay, so I have opened the browser, and we have to send a request, and we have to send request onto this 127.0.0 dot 1 and the port number will be 7000. Okay, so this is the whole request URL for our own server. And now hit enter, you can see the result is hello client. Okay, now just see the logs of the server, then you are able to see the hello world. Okay, so is it clear to all of you?
Sir, can you just repeat it shortly?
Yes, what?
Can you repeat it shortly?
Sir, so basically console is printing on our console right here. In what is this? It's Eclipse, right? Sorry, VS Code. And the other one is printing on the server. Response dot write.
So
Voice is breaking.
we have used this console log. So this console log is for the server's console.
Yes,
And
yes.
this response.write is to send a response on the client side.
Client server. Okay.
Yeah. 1 second.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
That create server is a event handler for that the URL we are writing in that browser or here at that what is
Yes.
it?
This is
Sir,
like
at,
a event handler. This is like a event handler of which event? The request arrival event.
sir, please down that terminal that I want to show that line.
Now, which line?
This line, the 12th line. If we not write that 12th line, then event is not
Then
getting.
then your server will not be started. Then your server will not listen to any request. We have just defined that. So by writing this callback function, we are just defining that what to do for any incoming request. Okay, we are just defining this thing that what to do for any request. But by calling this listen function, we are starting our server.
So
Got-
flow is that the URL, if you type that URL and enter, then it will come to the 12th line and then goes to the, you get
Just a
create
second.
server.
1 second. 1 second. Question.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I just want to ask what is the flow of that request? It's come from that URL to that 12th line, or that directly goes to that
Yes.
create server.
First of all, the request will arrive to this line number 12 when your
Yes.
server has started listening. So your server will take a request onto this port number, and at the same time, when any request arrives onto this port number, this callback will be executed instantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Sir,
you,
sir, that 7,000.
Can we check console log on server console? What do you mean by a check console log? Yes,
The
Poonam?
console of that web browser.
No. You can't access the server console on the browser. Browser console is different and server console will be different.
Okay. Can you show that web page part, like sending the request, the first step of sending the request?
Sure. Yes, this is it.
Sir, if we refresh this page, then what?
Nothing will happen. It will send a request again,
Okay,
and
so
again you are having a response.
so in our code there is only one this object, this line number 3, or we can create many objects.
Okay, so this web page is become client.
Yes, this browser
Yes, yes.
web page is is simply a client.
Okay.
But sir,
So-
after loading page, I want to send one more request on this page.
I'm having a network issue. Let me do one thing. There is a network issue at my side. Just give me 5 minutes and I'm back.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
स्मार्ट लग रहे भाई ढंग से।
विजयपुर और सिखा दो हमको।
अरे
गौरव
भैया,
घरी गेला का रे?
अरे योगेश, हे पोर्ट नंबर काय सीन?
अरे हो घरी से
हॅलो हॅलो हॅलो, हे पोर्ट नंबर काय सीन आहे काय
हा
माहिती?
सांग रे, 9 पोर्ट नंबर.
अरे मला नाही माहिती रे बाबा, मी
तोच
मेकॅनिकलचा आहे. मी मेकॅनिकलचा आहे. मला फक्त
सिव्हिलचा आहे.
मला कम्प्युटरचा फक्त माऊस कीबोर्ड आणि डेस्कटॉप माहिती आहे, मला नाही माहिती काय.
पोर्ट नंबर काय आयडी सारखं आहे का? म्हणजे ते स्पेसिफिक आयडी कसं असते तसं आहे का?
काय समजा नाही मला.
म्हणजे
मला मला जे दिसतं
मला
तेच
फक्त
समजतं.
मोबाईल पोर्ट होते मग तेवढं माहिती होतं. आता पोर्ट नंबर काय नवीन आहे.
पोर्ट मध्ये एअरपोर्ट माहिती आहे बाबा मला फक्त.
आधी एपीएन सेटल का एपीएन सिम कार्ड साठी तिथे पोर्ट नंबर विचारतो बघ.
हा रे, पोर्ट नंबर आहे. नाही, पोर्ट नंबर ते माहिती, ते व्हॅल्यू काय पण सिस्टम मध्ये कुठे आहे पोर्ट नंबर? मला दिसत तर नाही लॅपटॉप मध्ये कुठे.
असतो कुठेतरी असतो.
सर बोलले तुला पाहिजे तो पोर्ट नंबर टाक त्यामध्ये.
अरे नाही, पण पोर्ट नंबर काय आहे समजा, काय 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 त्याचे डिस्क्रिप्शन काय पोर्ट नंबरचं? सिस्टम मध्ये काय दाखवतं? स्टोरेज दाखवतो की काय दाखवतो? काय पॉइंट आउट करतं ते? हा, आपण रिक्वेस्ट पाठवतो ते जाते कुठे कम्प्युटर मध्ये?
ते सर्व्हरच्या कन्सोलला जाते रे.
सर्व्हर
लोकल
सर्व्हरकडे पण कन्सोल असतो. असं सरांनी सांगितलं बरं का.
मला वाटतं तो बेसिकली URL सारखं काम करेल. आपण जेव्हा आपल्या पीसी मध्ये सगळं सर्व्हर ट्रॅक करतो सुद्धा.
एकतर सर बोलले की ते काहीतरी स्टँडर्ड URL 127, ते पण मला काही समजलं नाही. जे आहे तेच घ्यायचा सर्व्हर साठी फिक्स.
आयपी ऍड्रेस 727.
अरे तो आयपी ऍड्रेस आहे, जसा तुझ्या घरचा ऍड्रेस आहे ना, तसा तो आयपी ऍड्रेस आहे ना 127. समझ
अच्छा,
जो
हाँ,
127 है ना,
तो विजय वो सब सेम कैसे होता है हर एक का? सर बोले
मैं
इसी
बता
को
रहा हूँ।
रिक्वेस्ट भेजने,
हाँ,
तो समझ ही
वो-
नहीं आया मुझे तो।
वो क्या है ना कि वो एक डमी सर्वर क्रिएट किया है HTML ने, तो वो सबको वैसे ही प्रोवाइड होता है। वो उसका स्कोप सिर्फ हमारे ब्राउजर और हमारे सिस्टम तक ही सीमित है। अगर बगल में भी एक कोई भी बैठा होगा उसका भी सेम होगा। पूरी दुनिया में सिर्फ एक ही डमी IP एड्रेस सबको मिला है HTTP की तरफ से, जिसको
HTML में नहीं
अरे वो रिस्पॉन्स लिखा था, वो जरूरी है क्या?
कौन सा
रिस्पॉन्स डॉट एंड लिखा था ना सर ने, वो
अरे
राइट
सिर्फ कंफर्मेशन से के लिए
ना गौरव सांगू शकतो
किस लिए?
कंफर्मेशन के लिए कि रिस्पॉन्स कंप्लीट हुआ है ऐसा, इसके लिए।
अच्छा गौरव
मोकळं सांग ना
विजय-
गौरव, काय म्हणतोय?
हेलो विजय,
हाँ
तो हम उसको रिक्वेस्ट सेंड कर रहे हैं वो डमी सर्वर को।
हाँ, नहीं अब यहाँ पे सीन उल्टा हो चुका है बिल्कुल। अब हमारा जो VS कोड है पूरा, वो एक सर्वर बन चुका है, जो ब्राउजर और क्लाइंट बन चुका है। अभी आगे आगे कहानी में
कुछ
ट्विस्ट
भी
आएगा।
बोल रहा है भाई, कुछ भी वेस्ट कोड सर्वर बन चुका है क्या तेरा? कुछ भी?
अरे तू
यार,
देख तो
मुझे कुछ
सही।
समझ नहीं आ रहा भाई, अभी
अरे
ज्यादा
यार।
है हो रहा है.
मुझे कुछ नहीं समझ रहा है।
ये विजय क्या बोल रहा है कि अपना
मुझे मेरे VS कोड से रेंज नहीं आती है।
VS कोड अपना सर्वर
भाई ये इस लेक्चर से पहले तो सर्वर समझा था, अभी नहीं समझ रहा मुझे.
VS कोड
ये मुझे ये बताओ 127.00 ये सब क्या है? ये किसका
मतलब था कि VS कोड मतलब इसी में दोनों चीजें हैं ऐसा। सर एक्चुअली ना, हाँ एक्चुअली पूरा फ्लो समझाओ एक बार फिर से, अगर रिक्वेस्ट है आपसे कि मतलब फ्रॉम स्टेप 1 से कि रिक्वेस्ट कहाँ पे गई, और वो जैसे 2 ऑब्जेक्ट आपने डिफाइन कर रखे थे, तो वो कैसे वो कर रहे हैं, कैसे एग्जीक्यूट कर रहे हैं।
सर प्लीज डायग्राम से एक्सप्लेन कर दीजिए, उससे हमें इजी होता है समझना।
Sure. So this box is representing your browser. Is my screen visible to all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this is your browser, and it will be termed as your client. And we are having one JavaScript program whose name is server.js. So basically, this JavaScript program whose name is server.js is acting as your server. So this server.js is acting as your server. So why I'm saying this thing? Because server.js is listening to the request. So first of all, we have to define two things. So that what yeah. So what our server will do when a request arrives. So this is the thing. So what our server will do when a request arrives, and on which port number our server will be active, or server will be active means what? Our server will be executed on which port number, because there may be a case where on your local host there are lots of process that are happening. Okay, so we have to define these two things, what our server will do when a request arrives, and the second thing is that. So in order to achieve what our server will do when a request arrives will be defined in which thing? Will be defined in this callback function which is there in
Yes.
create server.
Callback function.
Yeah, this will be done with the help of callback function. And what about the second thing? On which port number a server will be active is being represented by server.listen.
Listen.
Yeah. So server.listen is an infinite process. If you are writing server.listen and you are running this program, then this means what? Your server will listen infinitely to this port number 7000. Okay. Okay, now when you are done with these two things, you have to start the server. Why we need to start a server?
Accept the request.
Because of
To
listen.
process request.
Yes, in order
Perform
to take
operations.
a request on the server, so that server can perform its execution, we have to start the server. So we have to start the server. Okay, so this is the thing. So when you are done with these three steps, so this means you have defined your what your server will do, on which port number your server will be executed, and after defining these things, when you start a server, so it will start listening onto the mentioned port number. Okay, and let me write these things like yeah. So this is the box which is representing that callback function, which is having the request and response in the argument. Okay, I'm referring to this callback function. And on which port number our server should listen. We have defined that thing with the help of server dot listen, and I have mentioned the port number as 7000. And in order to start our server or to run our application, we have just executed our node server.js. We have to start the server. So I have written this thing like node server.js. So node server.js is just to run this JavaScript application. So first of all, we are writing this node server.js, and just after it, this server.listen will be executed. This means server.listen will start your server, which will be running on this port number 7000. Okay, and after this server.listen, your server is going to listen to this port number infinitely for infinite time period, because your server is now active. Okay, and now whenever someone on the browser hits this kind of URL like 127.0.0.1 and port number 7000, then request will be given. Then request will be given, and your server will accept that request. Okay, now server will accept that request because we are listening onto this port number 7000. First of all, we have started the server, and server.listen has started your server on this port number 7000. Now this request will be accepted by this callback function. So this callback function is having two arguments. One is request and one is response. So this request is representing, so this request object is representing the request of the incoming client. Okay, so if we want to read some data from the client, then this request object will be for you. Okay, and if you want to generate the response onto that client, then this response object should be there. Okay, so this means first of all, we will run our JavaScript program. And when we are done with running the program, server will start listening onto that port number, and server will wait for any request to arrive. And when we send a request from a client, the request will be taken by this request and response callback function. Okay, and at last, this function only will send a response onto this client, and in response we will get the hello world as message. So in response we got not hello world, we got the hello client message. Okay, and at the same time, on this server we are having one log which is hello world. So this is what actually happening in our case. So all of you understood this mechanism?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in this diagram we have written we have to start the server. So how can we start the server by using client side? Means
It is not possible. Your client cannot start the server. Your role of client is to just send a request on the server. That's it.
So we are just
Hello,
sending
sir.
the request on server. Then how can the server will start?
Hello, sir.
Server has been started already. When we are running node server.js, what we are doing?
Hello,
What
sir.
this command is representing?
Sir means program is run.
Yes, we are running a JavaScript program on the node. Yes or no?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, when you are running the server.js onto the node.js, your whole code will be executed.
Okay,
So
okay.
can you run that, start that in terminal, via terminal? Can you show that?
What we have done earlier. Have you executed any JS file on node yet?
Yes, yes. Yesterday's program.
It's the same thing. I'm writing node server.js.
Okay. Okay. By writing Node.js, node server.js, we have started the program. Okay,
Yes,
that
we
will-
have started the application. We have started the program.
Yes.
And when your node.js is going to read this entire code, it will get one line that is server.listen. And when this code has been executed, then at the same moment your server will start. Got my point?
The server is also a line of code, na sir?
Server is what?
Server is also code, na code.
Yes, Basically, server is a software
Yes, software. Yes.
that is taking a request from a network and sending a response on the network.
Yes, sir. Sir, but when we open a Chrome
Yes.
and we want to access the Amazon server,
Hmm.
so we just send a request.
Yes.
That means the Amazon server continuously always
Yes.
working.
Amazon server is continuously working. Yes.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Now just tell me if I'm not writing this line of code, server.listen 7000, I have not written this. Now what will happen?
Server won't respond.
Server is closed now.
Store is closed.
No.
Server is
Server,
closed.
Server is
Not
not listening.
started. Not
server.
Yes.
started.
Not
Start
processing.
to do our work.
So when we write node server.js, what will happen?
Server will
Program
be-
started.
Your program will start.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it like server is started, but it is not yet programmed to listen any request? Is
Yes.
it like that?
Shop is
No.
open, but
Server has not been started yet. This
Okay.
means that. Okay. Now if I'm writing node server.js, then you can see nothing is waiting. You are again having that console open in the same folder.
Okay, cool. The start and the listen are there in that server.listen function.
Exact. Server.json or server.js.
Server.js. Yes.
Yes.
So basically, server.js is our server. That file
Yes.
is
Server.js is a JavaScript program that is containing your server code.
And sir, in server code, we are mentioning that port number. So what this port number means in our program, server program, what this port number defines?
Just read this thing.
Which is running on a server.
Read the address
What I
of-
have told you, we may have multiple applications running on a server. Then how we are going to differentiate in between them? Let's say on your local server, you are having one student management application, one hotel management application, one flight booking application, one, let's say, institute management application. Then how you are going to differentiate in all of them? So this means, are you going to send request onto this IP address like 127.0.0.1? Now, which application will take request by looking at this IP address?
No, we can't tell.
Local server.
That's why the port number has been introduced.
Port number is just ID for different types of application present in
Yes.
the server.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. For different process.
Yes, that's what I have written. Is a
Yes.
logical address given to a process running on a server.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So as of now in our program, there is only one application to print that hello world.
Exactly.
Okay.
So why does that hello is printing twice?
Yes, I'm coming to that also. So now I have written this server dot listen. Okay, so now your server is active and it is continuously listening onto this port number 7000. Now, let's say what will happen. Right now, our server is listening onto the request. Now I'm breaking the execution like Control C. Okay, so I have used one shortcut Control C in order to break its execution. Now, is our server ready to accept any request?
No.
No. Now, what will happen if I will send a request onto this URL?
Server don't respond. Won't respond.
You can see your client is waiting and it is
Yes.
saying that this site can't be reached. Okay, because your server is not ready to accept the request. There is no connection. But now if I'm running this node server.js, we are continuously listening to this 7000. If I would take a example, a real life example for this, मोहल्ले की आंटिया को तो जानते हो ना तुम लोग? They continuously listen what is happening. Okay,
Yes.
server is just like that. So if I'm sending a request, then you can see Yes, port number is also applicable on any real-time application. It is just not limited to a local server only. But for a normal person, we are not supposed to give them the port number of our application because these are lot more technical terms. Okay, instead of giving IP address and port number, we will give them domain name like facebook.com, amazon.in, or flipkart.com. Such kind of domain name will be provided to them. Okay, but internally your browser will use DNS, domain name server, in order to find out that what will be the IP address for that particular domain name. Is it clear, Vishal?
Sir, clear. But I have another doubt
Yeah.
that we are getting any domain name. So every sorry. So every web page we have same port number or different port number.
See, a single server, let's say if you are having a website like Amazon, so it is totally dependable on that application developers that they are going to use the same port number or the different port number. It depends on the application's architecture. Have you heard something about the term like microservices?
Just heard.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Just
Okay.
had.
No, sir.
Not
See,
heard.
what happens in any real-time application if all the services like login, sign up, or placing that order
Order,
are
yes.
happening onto a single machine, then they will use the same port number. Okay, and there may be a scenario where each service is being hosted onto the different server machines, like they are known as microservices for a single application also. Okay, because there are lots of requests onto a single functionality, like on login there are lakhs of users who are attempting login, there are lakhs of users who are placing their orders. So in order to maintain the that much amount of traffic and that much amount of services into the application, we are going to use different port number for the different services. It is just applications architecture, completely depends on the developer's choice. Are they going to use the same port number or the different for different functionalities? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yeah.
But single machine can have multiple port number, right?
Yes, we can have.
So sir, we can say that any मतलब मेन फंक्शन जो है अमेजोन का फ्लिपकार्ट का वो अलग सर्वर पे है और जो भी ऑर्डर किया है और उसका जो डेटा है वो
Yes, definitely
अलग
we can
सर्वर.
say that. Yes, Amazon has used microservices architecture.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are having one doubt that why this hello world has arrived 2 times on the console, because we have sent the request only once. But why there are two hello world? Because it's your just say it by yourself. Why we are having 2 times hello world? If we are having 2 times hello world, then this means this function is executing 2 times.
Yes.
This
At the
callback is
time of
executing 2 times.
request.
Yes or no?
Yeah. At
Yes.
the time
Yes,
of
sir.
request and response.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
No,
yes.
no, 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 not at the time of response.
We refresh the
Because
page.
it's your browser which is sending 2 requests.
Yes.
It's your browser, one for your main body content and one for your fav icon, which is there inside the head of any web page. Have you seen any web page which is having a small logo?
Yes.
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 Yes, sir.
Yes.
So one request has been made for your fav icon. It is known as fav icon, and one request for your main body content. Okay, so that's why we are able to see this two hello world. And yes, we can prevent such kind of functionality by just writing our own client application in React or Angular JS. Okay.
I was getting that error from last 21 days.
What kind of error?
It's now
That
habit.
fab icon,
21 days.
fab icon error while
Yes, yes,
executing the program.
yes. Why it is there? Because your browser is there to send a request.
Are you connected to the live server? To
Yes.
my yes. That's
Mm. It's your browser who is sending the request behind the scene. And if you want to prove, then you can go onto the network tab. There you can see your browser will be requesting for that fav icon. Every time, this is the functionality of every browser. कि मुझे fav icon दो, मुझे fav icon दो.
तो चोर पकड़ा गया.
Okay, so all of you understood this small hello world application of the server?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So now let's do some more functionalities with this. And this listen function is having only a single argument as of now, which is just a port number. But you can also pass a callback function into it. Okay. And can you just guess at which event this callback function will be executed?
While loading the page.
While loading the page or
Yes.
loading the server?
The loading server, sorry.
Exactly what I'm actually trying to say by loading the server. Actually, this listen function is doing what? It is starting your server at this port number, and at that same moment, this callback will be executed. Okay, so as of now, we are having two callbacks. One callback is inside the listen, and one callback is inside what?
Create a server.
Yes, inside create server. So this callback, which is inside the listen function, will be executed when your server starts listening. So this means we can say that this function will be called when we start this server.js, when we run server.js. Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yes. And this callback function execution take place when a client sends a request. Okay, so in this callback function of listen, I'm writing one console log like server is active, or let's say server is running at port number 7000. So what will be the sequence of output? First of all, this server is running will be displayed on the console, or this hello world will be displayed on the console?
Server is running at
Yes,
7000.
server is running will be displayed on the console first, and this function will wait for the incoming request. If a client is not going to send a request, then this function will never be executed. Yes or no?
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so now again I have made some change in my source code. Then I have to break my server. This means I have to restart the server. So just break its execution and again start this. Now you are able to see at the time of running this program that server is running at port number. Oh, I have written one extra zero. Yeah. Okay, so again I've made a change. So we have to restart the server like Control C and again node server.js. So again the response is same hello client, and we are able to see this hello world. Okay. So this is how we are going to create our own server. Okay. So now here comes one more module. If you want to work with the files on the server side, so we are going to use one module that is fs. Okay, so to work with files on the server side, fs module will be used. So this fs module is going to simply going to provide all the functions which are related to the file handling. Okay, so in file handling you have studied that how we are going to create a file, and how to read the data of that file, and how to write the data into file. Okay, so we will explore these kind of functionality after a short break. Okay, so let's have a 10 minutes break and we will resume it after. Okay.
Server is shut down for 10 minutes. गौरव फुल आजारी दिसतोय.
अरे एक आठवडा झालाय रे. तू कसं आहे, कशी आहे दिवाळी, काय म्हणते?
भारी आहे. चालू आहे लेक्चर मध्ये ती जाते.
माझी तर निम्म्या
गौरव ब्लड टेस्ट करून घे ना.
केली रे दादा. ठीक आहे आता.
गौरव कुठं आहे आता?
ठीक आहे.
घरीच आहे.
नेवासा फाटा.
नेवासा फाटा.
काय घरी आल्यापासून निम्मे टाइम सगळा दवाखान्यातच गेला. काय पांडुरंग काय म्हणते दिवाळी?
हे काय असे पिक्चर? यांनी इकडे येणार होता ना तू?
दादा मी कुठंच नाही. आज तर शिकबार आहे माहिती. काम झालं.
अरे आपल्या सिस्टम मध्ये आपण 2 लोकल सर्व्हर क्रिएट करू शकतो का?
Okay, so welcome back after the break. Let me share my screen. Okay, so is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
great, great. Okay, so before break, we are discussing that if you want to work with file on the server side, then we will get a module that is FS. So FS means file system. So if you want to perform any file related operations, like if we want to create a file, if you want to read a file or write into a file, then you can use this FS module. So what will be the way in which we can perform any operation on the file? So first of all, let me have a separate JS file, and I would like to name that file as let's say file io.js. And again, we have to perform these operations on the server side. So for that purpose, we need one function that is required. And first of all, we will require this HTTP module and assign it into a reference like HTTP. So first of all, let's just define that what our server will do. So HTTP dot create server, and this function will return a reference to our server. So const server is equal to this. And now just write server dot listen, and inside listen just pass your port number, like I'm passing port number as 6500, and also you can pass one callback that will be executed at the same time when server start listening. Okay, so on this console log I'm displaying one value that server is running at port number 6500. Now we need one callback function inside this create server, and that callback will take two arguments. One is for the request and one is for the response. And you can give any name of your choice. Now we have to do file related operations. No, not necessary. It is not necessary to always give port number of 4 digits. It can be of any digit. Okay, so now let's require that FS module. So require FS, and one more variation is there, FS slash promises. So what should be the difference between FS and FS promises?
We won't be getting the direct results
Yes, we
in
will
promises.
get promises. Okay, and we have to handle the promise, then after we will get the result. Okay, so I would request you guys to explore FS slash promises by yourself, and I'm going to tell you about the FS module. So these are the same functions, but only the difference is that the FS promises is going to support the promise mechanism. Okay, you have to explore that, and let's assign it into a reference like FS equal to this. Okay, but if you are using this FS module, then if you are working with FS module, then for every operation, like if you want to read a file or if you want to write into a file, then for every operation, right, you will have two approaches. One is the synchronous and one is asynchronous. Okay, so this means what? If you want to read a file, then you can read a file synchronously or asynchronously. Or if you want to write something into a file, that may happen synchronously or asynchronously also. Okay, so this simply means that in FS module we can perform operations on a file in two ways. So first one will be the synchronously, and second will be the asynchronous approach will be there. Okay, so this means we can read a file in both way, either in synchronous or in asynchronous, or we can write into a file in both way. This means synchronously or asynchronously. So now what will be the meaning of synchronously reading a file? So if I'm saying that we can read a file synchronously, then this means what? First of all, the complete file. First of all, we will read that complete file, then only next line of code will be executed. Okay, let's say if I'm having a sequence of statements like, first of all, I'm reading a file, let's say read a file, uh, then log on the console and send the response. Okay, so if this is a sequence and read a file operation is performing synchronously, then what will be the expected sequence of the operations if read file is executing synchronously?
First is reading a file, then log.
Yes, then after it will send a
Send the
response, right? So this means this will be the process of synchronous programming. Let's say if your file is taking 5 minutes to read the data, then what will happen?
The
If
5 minute
yes,
log
Yes,
and
log
send
on
response for
console.
yes, this console log will take 5 minutes to get executed, because if your file is that much long to read the data, then it is taking 5 minutes to read that file. So this console log and the response should have to wait for the 5 minutes. That will be the synchronous approach. Okay, but what if we are reading a file asynchronously? What will happen then?
Logging
Log
and
log
sending
console
console
response
will
simultaneously.
have to wait.
Exactly. So your Node.js will have a separate process for this asynchronous operation of read file. Then it is performing simultaneously, meanwhile, just executing the console log and sending the response. And once when your file is ready, means your file data is ready, then it will take that data. Okay, so it's the developer's role to decide whether to go with the synchronous nature or with the asynchronous nature. Okay, you have to decide it by yourself. So first of all, let's perform the read operation synchronously. So if we want to read a file synchronously, then this means what? We need one function whose name is read file sync. Okay, so in order to read the data synchronously, we need this function read file sync. This is it. So let me write one thing. So if you want the read operation to be synchronously executed, if you want synchronous nature, then which function will be our cup of tea? Read file sync. And if we want to read a file in asynchronous nature, then if we want to read a file with asynchronous nature, then only we will use read file function. Okay, so these are the functions. So read file will perform its execution asynchronously, and read file sync will perform its execution synchronously. Same thing applies to the write also. If you are having write operation and if you want to go with the synchronous approach, then what function should be there? Yes, try to answer.
Write file
write
sync.
file sync.
Write
File
file
sync.
synchronize.
Yes. So if you want to read the file, or if you want to write into a file asynchronously, then only the write function will be used. Okay, so these are the functions which on which we have to work with. So this read file sync will take a argument that is a file path, And let's say I'm creating one file, notes.txt, and inside notes.txt, I'm writing some data like this is a dummy text file. Okay. So now inside this read file sync, we have to pass the name of file. This means notes.txt will be our file. And this function is going to return the data which is being there inside the file. And you can assign that into a variable like where data equal to this. And after this, you can log the data on the console. Okay. So whenever a client is going to send a request, so your server is going to read that file, and that data will be logged on the console. And on the client side, I will send a response like file read operation completed. Okay, so this is the response which I'm sending, and again we have to end the response cycle. So response dot end. So now let's run this program, and let me do one more thing. After reading or after printing that data on the console, I'm writing one message like after reading file. Now what will be the sequence?
First read file, then it printed the file.
Yes.
It will print after reading, and then
Yes. Yes. Then on the client, we will have this response read operation complete. Okay, so we have to break the server execution, and we have to run our new file, that is node file io.js. Okay, so you can see one message, server is running at 6500, and now let's send a request onto this port number, which is 6500. So 127.0.0.1 and port number would be 6500. Hit enter and you can see read operation completed. Now just see on the console what we got. So we are having the data from that file, but we are not having that text data. We are having this buffer data. Why so?
Console.log data.
Yes.
Because this is the empty file.
No, this is not an empty file. This is having this text. This is dummy text file. But instead of reading the character data, it is giving us the buffer data. So I hope in Java you are familiar about byte stream and character stream.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What is the difference
Yes, sir.
between these two streams?
Byte stream read
So,
data as a byte
in a byte format.
Byte form.
Exactly. So this is the only reason. So in JavaScript, there is no concept of a direct character stream. So how your FS module is going to recognize that what kind of data we need to read? So they have defined a single convention. Like if for any kind of file, whether it is a text file or a media file or like any image or any song or any video file, it may be, okay, it may be any kind of file. If you are going to read that file, then you will get the bytes from that file. Okay, if you are having the text file, then also you will get the bytes of the data. So this means we are getting the bytes of the data from the text file, and that bytes of data in JavaScript is known as the buffer data. Buffer data means the data which is there inside the buffer memory inside the RAM. Okay, so your file is having text data, but in the JavaScript side, in the application side, you will get that buffer data. And if you read any media file, then also you will have this buffer data. And we need to, and we know that this file is having a text data. So we need to convert this buffer data into string in order to extract the characters from them. So how we are going to convert that data into string? So on this data variable,
Operator.
just call a function toString. Okay, so it will give us a text form of that buffer data. And just don't think that if you are reading a file like a song.mp3, and if that file is containing a song like Tum Hi Ho, and if you are converting data.toString, then it will print the lyrics of that song. It is not like that. Okay. So this toString will only work for the text files. Okay. So nodes.txt. So let's again restart the application node file io.js. So yeah, this time you can see we are having such kind of message. This is dummy text file. The data which is there inside the file, we have read the data and we are having a message like after reading file. Okay. So this is the reading file which is taking place as a synchronous operation. Now let's read the same file asynchronously, and let's understand that how we are going to read a file asynchronously. Operation is going to be the same, but a sequence may matter. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
can we send that data onto the response.write?
Yes, sure. Instead of writing this message, read operation completed, you can write data.toString, or just assign this data.toString into a variable and just print that variable in write. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
So I'm
that
creating
sequence.
yes, yes, what?
Sir, that sequence matter of that first line should be the above of that fourth line.
Which first line? Line number?
We are line number 1 is should be the above of that fourth line. As that mandatory.
Yes, it is mandatory. Why?
Okay.
You are using const, and const variable needs to be initialized before using them. Do you remember
But
const
if
behavior?
yes sir, but if you use where, then it is mandatory.
If you are using where, then you can write that amount of code before the line number 1, but value will be what? Undefined.
No.
Arey,
Sir, please.
just tell me if you are having a console log of variable a, and after it you are having where a equal to 5. What will be the value of a in line number 1?
Undefined.
Undefined. So if you are doing the same thing, let's say for the same thing you are writing line number 4 before the line number 1, then this means this http will be initially undefined, and on this undefined you are calling one function create server. That is not possible. Okay, so let me create a file that async read file .js. So in this async read file, we need to read the file asynchronously. So for that purpose, we will go with this function only, whose name is read file. And inside this read file, what argument we can pass? So you can see, first of all, we have to pass the path or the name of file, and we can pass the callback function. And that callback function will take two arguments then. One will be for the error and one will be for the data. So this asynchronous process, see, every time whenever you are having any process asynchronously, then it is mandatory, then you are having a callback function. Okay, because without callback function, no nothing will be executed asynchronously. And that's why callback functions are designed for. To execute any operation asynchronously, we will need callback functions. So in this read file, we have to pass the name of file. So we are not required to assign a return value, and just don't call this console log. Yeah. Okay, so now inside the read file function, which will work asynchronously, I'm writing the name of file as notes.txt, and in this we have to pass a callback, and that callback function will have two arguments. One will be for error and another will be for data. If there is no error, this means we are ready with the data. And if there is an error, this means something went wrong. So you can apply one if condition that if there is an error, we can log the error on the console. Okay, but if there is no error, then this means the read operation has been successfully completed, and we can log the data. But again, if you are logging the data, this means you are printing the buffer data, right? We are printing the bytes of that data, but we want to get the string. So just call the toString method. Okay, so now what will be the sequence? Now what will be the sequence? So this line number 13 is going to wait for this read operation to be completed.
No. No.
No,
sir.
it will not wait, right? So now let's see what will happen. So we have to run this program whose name is async read file. Async read file.js. Okay, so again our server is active at port number 6500. Now we are having this response as read operation completed. And now this time, just look at the sequence. First, we got this after reading file. And when the read operation has been completed, that callback is being executed. So this is dummy text file. So if your sequence is going to matter, this means, let's say, consider one scenario. You want to read a file and you have to send that data on to the response. Then which process we have to go with? Synchronous or asynchronous? Synchronous. If you want to read a file and you have to send that data into the response, then this means we have to wait to read that file, okay, until the file has not been completely uh, read by your program. We have to wait to send the response. If your file is too large, so you have to wait for that amount of time to read that data, okay. But if your read operation is not going to matter your response, then just execute it asynchronously, okay. So all of you understood this?
Sir, here that read file making a new thread.
Yes, exactly. Internally, it is making a new thread. Not your application is going to make a new thread. Your Node.js will ask your operating system to create a new thread. Because
And that
multi-threading is not in the
read
hands of
file
developers.
synchronous is work. And sir, that read file synchronous is working like a normal function, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So now we are done with the read operation. Now let's perform the write operation. So I'm creating one file, that write file. Let me write operation .js. Okay, and I want this write operation to work asynchronously. Okay, I want this write operation to work asynchronously. Then what thing do we need? So fs dot write file. We need this function whose name is fs dot write file. So this function is going to write the data into a file asynchronously. Then you can see what will be the sequence of arguments. First, you have to pass the file path. Second, you have to pass the data. And third, you can pass a callback. Okay. So I'm passing the name of file as, for example, demo.txt. And in the second place, we need to pass the data which we need to write into that file. Okay, so I'm writing one text into that file, that is Katappa ne Bahubali ko mara. Okay, this is the data, okay, which I want to write into the file. And this function is going to take one callback in the argument. Okay, and inside this callback, you can perform any operation after the successful write operation. Okay, so let's say this time I'm logging a value like after writing into the file. Okay, and just after it, I would like to send a response on the client like response dot write, and inside the response dot write, just pass your any message you want to send. Okay, so let's say I'm passing one message like the write operation completed. Okay, so this is the response. Now, what will be the sequence? Okay, just before that sequence, I'm doing one thing after writing into file, and in this write file, I'm logging one message like done with writing file. Now, what will be the sequence?
After writing file,
After writing into the file,
Yeah.
done with file,
And
then
on the
write
client
operation
side, we will get this response.
Yes.
Yes. So just answer one question. What is going to happen? Will the file will be written first, or the client will get the response first?
File will return first.
Client get the response first.
Exactly. Client will get the response first. Then only your file, then after that file will be written. Okay. Why this is so? Because this process is being separately performed by a thread. If the write operation is taking time, then this code is not going to wait. Okay. So now let me run this application. So the name of that file is write operation .js. So again, our server is running on port number 6500. Now write operation completed, and we have got a new file whose name is demo.txt, and we are having this kind of content inside the file. And you can see what is the sequence we are having after writing into the file and done with writing the file. So this is the asynchronous nature which we are having. So all of you understood this? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 1 second.
Hello.
Okay. Yes. Suppose if you are having multiple lines of code, like this is second line. In case of read or in case of write?
Sir, right.
Okay. If you want to write multiple lines.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that is again simple. If you want to write multiple lines, then just put a slash n over it and then continue your next line. It will put a new line into your file. Okay.
Sir, we are not going to write time here in that write file. So how that it will taking the time, because in that set timeout we declare some time, so it will take some time to start. But here he has to start first that done with writing file.
The time will totally depend on amount of data you are writing into that file. If let's say there are thousands of lines, then we are sure that it is going to take some time, either 1 or 2 seconds of time. We are not supposed to define the time for any task. It will totally depend on their operation.
So here we can't say that definitely say that guarantee that 8 line will be execute first only, right?
Yes, we can't say it by guarantee, but we can say it that first of all, the write file will take place. A separate process will be
Yes.
initialized by our Node.js, and after initializing that process, this console log will be executed.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yes.
So in this file mechanism, we will follow always synchronous mechanism. Why to follow asynchronous mechanism then?
You have to decide by it may be your synchronous mechanism or it may be asynchronous mechanism. Totally depends on your business logic case. Like suppose if your write operation on your write operation, some operation is being dependent, like you have to send a successful response or a failure response on the client side, whatever be the status of your write file. Let's say if your write file has completely executed successfully, then we have to send a response like write operation completed. If there is an error into the write file, we have to send a response like there is an error in writing the file. Then response is being dependent on the write operation. Yes or no?
Yes.
Then we have to go synchronously. Okay, if your response in this example only, if your response is not dependent on the write operation, then why we need to wait for this? Just just clearly send a response first. Okay. So this is being decided by the business case which you are going to write using any logic. Okay, so this is the asynchronous operation of writing the data into file. Now, how we are going to write the data into file synchronously? Let's see that. So I'm going to create a file write operation sync.js. Okay, so again, we are having that kind of code, and yeah. So if we want to write data into file synchronously, then you have to go with this function write file sync. And simply this function is going to take two arguments. One will be the file name and another will be the data. And I'm writing the file name as, for example, myfile.txt, myfile.txt, and just after it, just mention your data. Like this is a dummy para. Okay, and then simply this function is going to write your data into file, and then only this code execution will take place. Okay, so this console.log has to wait for this line number 5 to be completed. Then only this line number 6 and 7 will be executed. If the line number 5 is taking, let's say, 5 minutes of time, then it has to wait for 5 minutes. So this operation is write operation sync. So write operation sync.js. So again, our server is running at 6500 and I'm sending a request. So write operation completed, and we got a file whose name is myfile.txt, and this is the content. And you can see we are having this content as after writing into the file. Okay, so this is the synchronous nature in which you can write the data into the file. And I would request you guys to explore FS promises mechanism. Okay, you can search it on Google. You will get n number of websites. Okay, and just to have an idea that how FS promises is going to work. Okay.
Can you show the code, sir?
Which code?
This one.
FS promises.
No, this one. Okay.
This is on your screen.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so now we are done with this write operation and read operation synchronously and asynchronously. We are very much familiar with the Node.js, that how we are going to create a server and how we are going to perform operations on the server side. Okay, so now I am coming to the next concept. Have you guys heard about Bootstrap?
Yes, sir.
Just heard.
Yes.
Idea you are having about Bootstrap? What exactly is Bootstrap?
No,
No, sir.
No idea.
no,
The
sir.
first program which gets loaded when we start the computer.
Okay, that is one
For
thing with
booting
the
purpose.
Bootstrap.
Booting purpose.
Okay.
Bootstrap paradox.
Booting.
The media query.
Yes, related to media query. Yes, we can say it. Okay, so
Sir,
let's start.
sir. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Actually, I am having doubt regarding that drawing. Can you please just go back there?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Here we have the hello client has been what we can say. We have received hello client as a response from server.
Yes.
So in when the server is live, in case of an actual server, that hello client message will be stored in the database of the server, right?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so now let's come to our next topic that is again very interesting. Bootstrap. So basically, this Bootstrap is a UI building tool which we are going to use. Okay, so we are going to use this Bootstrap thing. So basically, this is a small library to build UI. UI means user interface. That this means front end of any application. A small library to build UI or a front end of any application. Okay, so why we are going to use this Bootstrap? Because when we write our own CSS and when we write our own HTML, by default, our web page will not become responsive. What exactly is responsive? Anyone having idea? What is a responsive web page?
To show a event response.
Okay, this means a web page which is responding to any user interaction.
We can say in a way.
Sir, if we resizing it, then content automatically get
Exactly.
fixed.
That's the term responsive means. So responsive web page is a web page that can adjust its layout onto any screen size, whether you open that web page on mobile phone or on a laptop or on a ipad kind of tablet, or any big amount of screen, like you are having 50-inch of tv, 55-inch of tv, or 70-inch of tv. So you can open any website on any size screen. So your web page should be able to adjust the layout, okay, on any kind of screen. So that is a responsive web page for you. So by default, if you are developing any front end by using your own html and css, then for that case your application is not going to be responsive. Okay, so that application is meant to be opened only on the laptop or the bigger screen devices. But as of now there is a trend that instead of having laptops all the time with us, we are having mobile phones. And if someone is having any web application, so if someone has launched a web application, then first of all we will open our mobile browser and we will keep on searching. So that web application should adjust its content into the given width of that mobile phone. Okay, so that application is the responsive one. So if you want to make your application responsive, so that on any screen size you can open that application and it will not going to mismanage your UI. So in order to achieve responsiveness, css is going to provide a feature that is media query. Okay, if you want your own responsiveness mechanism, then in css you have to go with this media query concept, because in media query you are writing some conditions onto the screen size. Let's say if on the larger screen in which maximum in which minimum pixel is 1000, in which minimum width is 1000 pixel, then we have to do something else. And if the maximum width available is 500 pixel, then we have to organize our content in some different way. Okay, so in this way you are writing some conditions based on the screen size. But there is no limitation, there is no limitation of the screen sizes. It may be possible that some brand is launching their mobile phone with 6.1-inch screen, some is launching with 5-inch screen, some is having 7.2-inch screen. So screen size is not going to be the standard, they are not fixed. Okay, so instead of writing this media query by our own, we will use a library that is bootstrap. Okay, so bootstrap is simply a small library to build a responsive front end of any web application. Not only front end, we would say that responsive front end, to build responsive UI or responsive front end of any web application. So this means the bootstrap people has already written some css. They have already written that amount of media query to make your application responsive. Okay, this means you can open that website on any screen size, and you will have your application responsive. Okay, so they have written the css, they have written the javascript. You don't have to write your own css in order to make any application responsive. So now it's the developer's role or duty to make any application responsive, and you have to go with this responsive concept, because as of now in this modern era, we have to make it's the requirement of IT industry to develop the responsive front end for any application, because there may be some users who are opening a website on mobile phone, or let's say on any tablet or any bigger screen. Let me show you some example of responsive web pages. And even the bootstrap's original website is also responsive. Let me show you. Okay, so I have opened this Bootstrap official website on the browser screen. So you are able to see this kind of website. Okay, you are able to see this kind of website on the browser. This means on the larger screen. This is the kind of layout which we are having. So at the top, we are having this navigation bar. At bottom, we are having this logo and one heading and one paragraph. And when I'm scrolling it down, and you can see there are two sections which are visible side by side. Okay, so this is the kind of layout we are having on the larger screen. But what will happen if the same website will be opened on the mobile phone? Let me resize the browser. Okay, now this time I have resized the browser. So you can see everything is being adjusted according to the width. When we are having a larger screen, then you can see the navigation bar is this kind of. You are having all the links displayed uh, in the total width. But if you resize your browser window, then you can see you are getting one this side navigation bar. Okay, and when you scroll it little bit down, then you can see these are the two sections which are visible side by side on the large screen. You can see if you open this website on the large screen, then you will be able to see that these two sections, install via and install via CDN, include via CDN, these two sections are visible side by side on the large screen. But on the small devices, these two sections are aligned in the new line. Okay, so this is a responsive website for you. Whatever be the screen size, your web page is going to adjust the layout, okay, in that same way. Okay, so it's the modern applications requirement that always we have to make our web page responsive in order to support every kind of device that user is having. Okay, they may open our website on let's say laptop or any computer or any mobile phone or any tablet, or it can be any device. Okay, so this is the role of Bootstrap in order to make your website responsive without writing your own media query. So this doesn't mean that only Bootstrap we are going to use. If you are not willing to use Bootstrap, then you can write your own media queries. Okay, so without Bootstrap, we have to write our own media queries. Okay, so Bootstrap library is not that difficult. They are having their own defined CSS and own defined JavaScript. Just link that CSS and attach that JavaScript into your HTML and you are good to go. Okay, so without Bootstrap, we have to write own media queries. If you are willing to write your own, then you can definitely go with it. But if you are not into the CSS, then you have to go with the Bootstrap. So without writing your own media queries, if you want to make your web page responsive, then just use this Bootstrap. Okay, so this responsiveness made easy by this Bootstrap library. So what actually is Bootstrap providing us? So Bootstrap is having already defined CSS and JavaScript. Okay, we simply have to link CSS and JS into our HTML and we are good to go. Okay, so this is the thing which we have to follow. So all of you understood that why we are going to use this Bootstrap thing?
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Okay, so it's just a simple thing which you need to use. Okay, and the CSS is being already defined. So you just have to follow the already defined CSS into your HTML. So let me show you that how we are going to use this Bootstrap. So just search it on the Google, Bootstrap, open the Bootstrap official website, and you will see one section which is docs. So by just reading its docs, you can definitely have a idea that how we are going to create a responsive web page, right? So first of all, we have to create one HTML file, okay? And that HTML file must have this meta tag, which is for viewport and content width equal to device width and initial scale equal to 1. And it's the standard in which we have to create any HTML file. So let me create one HTML file for you. Okay. So I'm naming that file as bootstrap.html. And let's open that file in VS Code, and let's have a basic structure of our web page. Yeah. So by default, we are having this meta tag onto our page. And as of now, we have to link the CSS of Bootstrap, and we have to link the JavaScript of the Bootstrap. And this thing is being defined by the Bootstrap only. So you can see in the second step, it is saying that include Bootstrap CSS and JavaScript. So this is the link tag. Okay, so this is the link tag which you need in order to link the CSS, and this is the script tag which will be used in order to attach the JavaScript of the Bootstrap. So you have to attach these two things. One will be your link and one will be the script. So just copy this, or else you can do one thing, just copy this entire code. Okay, just copy this entire code and paste it into your HTML, and you are good to go. Okay, so we have linked the HTML, so we have linked the CSS of the Bootstrap, and we have linked the script of the Bootstrap. Now, how we are going to use the Bootstrap? So this Bootstrap is having already defined CSS, and in that CSS they have used the class selectors. So have you guys remembered the class selector in CSS?
Yes.
Yes, the same thing we need to apply. Okay, so this means the Bootstrap people has already written CSS with the class selectors, and we just have to apply the name of class onto our HTML elements. Okay, so first of all, now let's understand the internal working of Bootstrap, that how Bootstrap is going to make our page responsive. So this Bootstrap is going to make our web page responsive by its grid system. So Bootstrap provides a grid system. The name is looking like a more technical term, but it is nothing like that. It is just a simple term. So Bootstrap provides a grid system. So grid system means what? According to our Bootstrap, so according to Bootstrap, the browser's width on the large screen, okay, according to the Bootstrap, the browser screen will be divided into 12 equal columns. That's the most basic point for the Bootstrap. Okay, so according to the Bootstrap, your browser screen will be divided into 12 equal columns, and we are not required to do this thing. When you have linked the Bootstrap CSS into your web page, then by default your browser screen is divided into 12 equal columns. Okay, so this is the grid system. This means 12 equal columns means what? 12 equal 12 equal grids. Let me show you with the help of a diagram. If this is your browser's width, then your Bootstrap is going to divide this entire width. Then your Bootstrap is going to divide your entire width into 12 equal columns. Let's say this is the first column, and let's say this is second, and in the same way third, and this is fourth, and this is fifth, and in the same way Bootstrap divides the complete width. Okay, Bootstrap divides the complete width into 12 equal columns. Okay, so this is the working nature of the Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is going to divide the complete width into 12 equal columns. These are the 12 equal columns, or we can say 12 equal grids, in which our complete width will be divided. Okay, but what if we want to create two sections side by side, just like the Bootstrap official website? Let me go back to that page. Okay, so you can see you are able to view these two sections side by side. So this complete width is being divided into 12 equal columns, and if you want to have these two sections side by side, so this one section will take 6 columns of that grid system, and again the section at the right side will take 6 columns. Okay, so this is how you are supposed to make use of this grid system. So if we want to display some sections side by side, you have to consider this 12 equal grids, and you need to display two sections, then you need to occupy 6 columns. Okay, so let me show you with the help of diagram that if we want to make such kind of layout. Okay, suppose this is our complete web page, and if I want to display some section at the left and some section at the right, this means we want to display two sections side by side. So this means one section will take 6 equal columns, and another section will also take 6 equal columns of the Bootstrap. Okay, so this will be the structure. So this section will take 6 columns, and also this section will take 6 columns. Okay, so this is the thing which we need to take, right? And again, let's say if this is our browser width, and we want to have 3 sections in a single row, 1, 2, and this is third. Now what will happen? How many columns will each section occupy?
4 columns each.
Yes,
Four.
these, yes, 4 columns. This also take 4 columns, and this will also take 4 columns. Okay, so whenever you are creating any UI, you have to remember this grid system. And this doesn't mean that all these sections will take the same width. There may be a case. Let me show you with the help of a diagram that if this is your complete browser width, so you can do one thing, that this section is taking, let's say, 8 Bootstrap columns, and one section is taking the 4 columns. Okay, and you can also make a partition like 10 and 2, or like 2, 10 and 2. Okay, but the sum of the columns should be equal to 12. Okay, so this is the thing which you have to follow, the Bootstrap grid system. So now on the large screen, if you are able to see these 3 sections side by side, and when you resize them, they will automatically being displayed in the new line. Okay, they will be aligned into the new line automatically by a Bootstrap if you are following the grid system. Okay, is it clear to all of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, suppose I'm using my mobile phone, and while we are visiting a particular page, I request desktop site. Then is this mechanism is working in the background in order to load that desktop site, right?
Yes, Desktop site means your viewport will expand. You are expanding your viewport. You are instructing your browser just to open that website in desktop mode. This means everything will be considered as your wider viewport.
Uh, and what about Zoom? We are zooming screen.
I think you have asked this doubt earlier also.
No,
No,
sir.
sir,
Actually,
I
I had
don't.
that.
At the time when we are exploring CSS,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
why
I
are
had.
so much obsessed of zooming the things? Let me zoom this. This is the maximum zoom level which I can do in this browser. So you can see here also the content is looking like this. Okay. So if you are going to zoom, then there may be a case where your website is not viewing properly. There is no such significance of zooming in the website and we are viewing that application. That's why only we have used this bootstrap, so that it can be opened onto your mobile browsers also. Okay, just think that if you are displaying such kind of a big heading, that amount of large font size into the desktop, do you think that the same font size will be there for mobile phone also?
No.
No, right? This is these are the things which bootstrap is taking care of.
So we can say that, can you say that they have written like 12 media queries for that, for singles, for separate grids?
See, this grid system is being prepared by the bootstrap, and you just can't say that how much amount of CSS they have written, because the media query will be written for a single section. Let's say for this 12 equal columns, they have written minimum they have written 12 conditions for the grid system. Yes, minimum 12 conditions will be there, but rest all the things are also be contained by the media queries, like controlling font size, controlling width and height of any section will also be there.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's understand that how we are going to use the grid system. Okay, so first of all, let's create one division. Okay, so I have created one division, and by default, this division will not leave any margin from the left and from the right. Okay, there will be zero margins at the left and right. Now, if you want to leave some margin from the left position and the right position, then you can use the bootstrap class as container. So I'm not writing any CSS. Okay, this CSS is being already written inside this bootstrap CSS file, which I'm linking, and that CSS file is containing one class, that is container. So if you are applying this container class, so this container class is already defined in bootstrap. Okay, so this container class will apply margin at the left and margin at the right. Let me show you this by writing a paragraph. Okay, so I have written one paragraph into this, and let's open this bootstrap.html. So you can clearly see that we are having some gap at the left and some gap at the right. So these are the margins which are being applied by this container class. So all of you got this? Yes or no? This container class is clear to all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Only margin property includes in that applied on that container class.
Yes, only the
Okay.
margin is there. Okay, so now if we want to have two sections side by side, this means these two sections will be displayed in a row. So if we want to display some sections in a row, then you have to create one division. Then you have to create one division, and that division should be containing one class, that is row. Okay. Then this class is being also defined in the bootstrap. So you have to follow this kind of structure. It's your duty to apply the classes on your HTML elements. So I have applied one class, that is row. Why I have applied this class row? Because I want to have some sections that will be displayed in a row. But if you not apply this class equal to row, then by default, the divisions are having a property just to display their content into the new line. Yes or no?
Can you show
Yes,
the
sir.
previous?
Let me show you one thing. If you are having this H1, this is the one HTML thing, like H1 hello, and you are having one division, that is again will be having like world. Then by default, every division,
Yes, new line.
yes, will be displayed in the new line. It's the property of
New
a
line.
div. But if you want to display
Yes.
these divisions into the same row, then you must have a div and apply a class row. So just create one division, apply one class row, and inside that class row, just put these divisions. So this div class equal to row will be acting as a parent of the multiple sections which needs to be displayed in a single row. And inside row, you have to create the columns. Okay, your bootstrap columns you have to create. So you have to specify that this first division will occupy how many columns, and this second division will occupy how many columns for the grid system. So I want to occupy the 6 columns. So just apply a class and write call -6. So in order to create a column, you need to write a class that is call. So first of all, I have created a row. Then inside that row, we will have multiple columns. Okay. So, and what about call 6? Call 6 means we have to occupy 6 columns. So this class will start from call 1 and it will go up to class call 12. Okay. So minimum the bootstrap people has written the 12 CSS, right, starting from call 1 up to call 12.
Sorry to
Now,
interrupt.
yes,
Okay, sorry
what?
to interrupt you, sir. But the value of class is predefined in that the
Yes,
group. Yeah.
this means the bootstrap people has written the CSS like this, like call -1 should behave like this,
Yes,
and
yes.
dot call -2 will behave like this. They have written the CSS. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but this time I want 6 columns, so that's why I have written this call 6. Now again for this, I'm occupying the 6 columns. Now just look at the output. See, we are having hello and the world displayed in the same row. Let me inspect it. Okay, so you can see we are having this call 6 which is being highlighted, and again this call 6 which is the second division. Okay, so this is the kind of a layout which we have created. But what if I'm trying to resize it? Let me increase the content. I'm writing one lorem ipsum paragraph, and just after this world, I'm again writing one lorem ipsum paragraph. Okay, so you can see we are having these two sections which are visible side by side. Now, what will happen if we resize the browser window?
Hello will be first, paragraph and what will be down.
But that's not the case as of now, because we have specified that every time by writing this class call 6, we are writing that every time we have to occupy the 6 column. irrespective of the screen size. Okay, but if you want to specify that for only the large screen, we have to occupy the 6 columns. So you are getting one class that is called LG6. Okay, this means for only the large screens, we have to occupy 6 columns. So this call LG6 will only be applied for the large screen. So again, this class is being already defined in the bootstrap. So just apply call LG6. LG means we are just targeting the large screen. So onto the small devices, the div behave normally. This means onto the small devices, the div will take the complete width. Now again for this second division also, I'm applying a class which is call LG6. So call LG6 means what? We are just targeting the bigger screens, the large screens. Okay, so you can see this is the content on large screen. But when I'm resizing my browser, so you can see this call LG6 is now not functional on the small screen devices. Okay, so if you are willing to create a responsive page, then it is always recommended to target the specific screens. So this means we can apply call LG, and not only LG, we are having lots of classes. Like this grid system is going to provide a call LG and call SM. This is going to provide call MD and call access. So we are having such kind of classes which are being defined in the bootstrap grid system. Let me show you this. Let me open this doc and let me open this grid system. So you can refer its documentation to read more things about the bootstrap. Okay, so you can see these are the classes which you can apply: call access, call SM, call MD, call LG. You can have call Excel, you can have call double Excel. Okay, so you are also having this width, like maximum width should be what? Okay, so if the maximum width is available, which is 540 pixel, then you can go with this class SM. Okay, so this class SM will target those devices on which maximum width is 540 pixels. So this call MD will target those devices on which maximum width is 720 pixels. Okay, so this is the thing which you have to follow. Okay, so in general, you can go with this call LG just to target your large screen devices. So this LG will be for the laptop or for the monitors, and MD for the medium devices like for iPad or any tablet kind of screen. SM will be for the mobile screens. Okay, and this Excel will target those devices, okay, which are greater than equal to 1200 pixels, and this double Excel will target those devices in which width is greater than or equal to 1400 pixels. So you can do one thing. Let's say on large screen I'm occupying the 6 columns, and you can do one thing that on the small devices I want to occupy the 8 columns. Okay, so you can write such kind of classes in order to manage the layout of your web page. Okay, so call LG6 means the 6 columns on the large screen. Call SM8 means only 8 columns on the small screen. Okay, so this is like that. Okay, so all of you understood this class call LG6?
Yes.
Now what will happen if I would writing this call LG8 and call LG4? What will happen?
The first 12 number class will take 8 and
Yes,
other
you
will
can
take
see 8 and 4. The 8 is taking a lot more space and this is taking 4 columns only. So this is the bootstrap grid system for you. And if you are resizing the window, then you can see it has adjusted the layout. Okay. Is it clear to all of you?
Sir, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I would request you guys to explore some more things about the bootstrap, and in next class we will resume bootstrap also, that how we are going to create a form, and these are the components which we have to explore. Like we can create some alerts, right? We can create this kind of buttons into our web page. So I will request you guys to just have a hands-on onto these concepts. So these are nothing but you have to apply some classes like BT and BTM primary, and in order to create a navbar also, you are getting one already written code which you have to use, but we will see rest of them in the next session. Okay, so this is from my side for this session. Okay, so thank you guys, thank you all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Take care, Gaurav.
Or even I know.
All of you, please join for the lab at 1:30. Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.